What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Powered by Primus. My name is Jamie, and in today's video we're going to be starting a new series, and it's something that I'm very excited to bring to you guys. Now, it's something that I've been asked on a pretty regular basis about a lot of stuff, so I figured it only made sense to let's make a series about it to really help people out when it comes to learning how to play a new deck or learning how to play against a specific deck. Now, with these, I'm going to be doing all of the mainstream decks that you're going to find around in the meta. Today, we're going to be showing off Metroplex, and then later on, we're going to be able to do Superion, Insecticons, and many others, which is going to be really exciting. Now, before we get into today's video where we talk about how to play with Metroplex and play against Metroplex, if there's any mainstream decks that you guys do want to see me do one of these episodes on, head down to the comment section below and let me know what deck you would like to see. Now, if you guys do enjoy this episode and you guys are enjoying this series, obviously leave me a like. It would be greatly appreciated. Plus, it lets me know that you guys are enjoying this content. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you guys can get access to all of our videos as soon as they become available. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to this episode is going to be playing with the character first. Now, the big reason why I think that it is more beneficial to learn how to play with the deck than it is to just play against the deck is because if you don't have any experience with the list, you don't really know what the deck is supposed to be doing. Therefore, it's always better to learn how to play the deck first so you can better understand what your opponent is going to be trying to do, even if you choose not to be playing these decks. Again, we're going to be showing the versus after this, so you will know how to better go against each of these decks as well. Now, we're going to be starting things off by showing Metroplex in this mode. Now, he does begin the game with this mode with 3 characters underneath him. These 3 characters we're going to get to here in just a second. So they're going to start off underneath him. Not going to have to worry about them yet. Now, it says when you flip to this mode, you get to deploy a character from underneath him onto the battlefield. The way that this will work is that if you are in this mode, which you will always have to be into to obviously flip into the other mode, you will then flip into this mode and you will have the choice of being able to deploy any of them. Now, the way the card does read is it does show you the 3 that are underneath. There is no specific way in which you do have to bring out these characters. It is all going to be based on your situation and who you're be trying to go with. So, first off, let's talk about each of these characters. First one is going to be 6 Gun. Now, 6 Gun has 2 attack, 5 health, and 1 armor, and then it says when your Metroplex attacks, you get to do 1 damage to the defender. The way that this is going to work is no matter who Metroplex does attack, when he does attack a character, let's say you're going into a Battlefield Legend, whatever the case is, then you're going to automatically deal 1 damage, and that is before combat. One thing to know with this ability is that if this does proc and does KO the character that you are going into, there are no flips that will happen during combat because the character is already KO'd before combat even begins. So you do not flip any characters with your Metroplex, and your opponent does not flip any characters on defense because they are KO'd by this ability. Now, when we flip over to this mode, it does say when you flip to this mode, your Metroplex gets Bold 2. Now, the way Bold works in this game is that if you do have Bold 2, you attack, you get to flip 1 additional card for each Bold you have. Now, that is going to be relevant in this list just because we're going to be talking about his ability here in just a second, and this is going to be a Bold-specific deck in order to make sure we are hitting his ability. So if you get Bold 2, you flip 2 additional cards. If you have Bold 10, then you flip 10 additional cards. So that is going to be really nice, and then he always will give this to your Metroplex, and it'll have Bold 2. Get into the next character is going to be Slammer. Now, Slammer has 3 attack, 3 health, and 3 armor, great across the board. Really fun part about this character is that he actually does not have another side, which is really awesome, so you never have to worry about flipping this character. And it does say, when you deploy this from underneath your Metroplex, you get to do 1 damage to each enemy. Really nice little armed hovercraft trigger, does 1 damage to each enemy. If they have 5 enemies, deal 1 to all of them. If they have 1 enemy, deal 1 to them. It also says that your Metroplex has Bold 1. He is a tank and is also a ranged. I did miss, but he is a ranged on this side and then is also a ranged on this side. Now, the range is specific because we will be talking about that later on. And then the third and final character is going to be Scamper. He has 2 attack, 4 health, 2 armor. He is a melee and is a car. And then does say your Metroplex has Bold 1. Now, if you were curious if these abilities do stack, the answer is yes. So if you happen to have all 3 of these characters out, then your Metroplex will get Bold 2 off of this character, Bold 1 off this character, and Bold 1 off this character for a total of Bold 4. Now, when we flip to our other mode, which is really powerful side, he is going to be ranged on this side, 3 attack, 4 armor, 4 health and 1 armor. It says when you flip to this mode that you may and you have Metroplex on the battlefield, you may scrap an enemy weapon or armor. Now this is very specific because you do have to have Metroplex on the battlefield. So if your Metroplex has been KO'd, he's one of your last characters, this flip unfortunately would do nothing. You do have to have the big man out for this to work. This is a really, really good thing to do late game. Now when we do flip over to this side with our Metroplex, he has 6 attack, 35 health, and 1 armor, which is really powerful. He is a Titan and he is ranged. Now the Titan is specific with this list, we'll get into that later on, but it's a really, really cool thing. And then he does have the ability that says that when this attacks and you flip at least 2 whites, 2 oranges, and 2 blue pips, you get to tap each enemy and do 1 damage to each of them. Now you do not have to flip this exact amount of pips. You can flip 10 cards, but as long as out of those 10 cards you do hit at least 2 whites, at least 2 oranges, and at least hit 2 blues, then this does proc. You can, let's say, flip 10 cards, you get 2 whites, 2 oranges, and 6 blues, it still will proc his ability. Like I said, you just have to hit a minimum of those 2 pips to be able to proc. Now, if your question is going to be, well, what does a double orange pip card count as 2? And the answer is yes, there are 2 double pips on that card, so it would count automatically towards the 2 double orange, the 2 double blue. We do not have a double white, so you will never have to worry about that. Now the way that this ability will work is that you will go ahead and attack, you will then flip all of your cards equal to your bold, whatever the case is. If you then have all of those pips before damage is dealt, you then get to tap everyone down and do 1 damage to each of those characters, and then you get to finish your combat by adding how many mini oranges that you get to add onto your Metroplex and then into the character and their defense, obviously, and get to see how that goes. Now again, you did get to see earlier when we showed off these characters that obviously he gets more benefits the more the little characters are out, being able to get all these extra things. And if you do attack, then obviously you're going to be able to proc these bolts as well as maybe possibly even doing, you know, the 1 damage off of 6 gun and then getting bold off of these guys. You're going to be able to swing for lots of damage. So I really hope that that helps kind of set up how this deck is going to be built for you guys, and it's going to be based around a lot of bold and really trying to maximize that ability because it is very powerful and it is a really good thing and it really helps your Metroplex really win. The really big disadvantage, which we'll get to here in just a second, about how your first turn begins is that if you're not really proccing his ability, your opponent is going to have a lot of attacks into your Metroplex. Before we get into the deck and showing off a lot of the stuff and really showing how to maximize our Metroplex here, we're going to be showing you guys how to handle the first turn of the game, and it is something very specific and can have a lot of repercussions late game. Now the first thing is you have to decide who gets to go first. Now let's say in this instance Metroplex gets to go first. Now the choices here are always pretty interesting on what to do, but you do have to remember you cannot play a card when it comes to your first turn. So we're going to be flipping Metroplex first, and then we're going to be attacking. Now here you really are going to want to proc the ability, but honestly it's going to be really hard. Even if you do happen to flip a white battle icon in the beginning, you're only going to be flipping 4 cards, and it's going to be really difficult to be able to hit that ability. 2 of those would have to be white, and 1 would have to be a double orange, and 1 would have to be a double blue. Now on the list I'm going to be showing you guys, there's only 2 double oranges and 2 double blue pips. Now in this game right now there are currently more double pips. However, I'm not a big fan of playing those. We'll get into the deck list here in just a moment, but we're not going to be really proccing our ability on the first turn. Now you're going to choose whatever target you would like to go into out of these 3, and then your ability will most likely not go off. You'll get in for maybe 5 to 7 damage. However, the combat will go. Now the reason about going first with Metroplex is very specific, is now our opponent will have access to being able to play 1 card and to be able to completely smash this Metroplex. Is the one thing I was telling you guys about, is that early game you do have to worry about that first swing. Now we are a mixed list with Metroplex. Obviously we have to have white, orange, and blue battle icons, so a big attack can be still not as bad because we do have blue pips to be able to help save us a lot of damage in the beginning. Now what will happen is our opponent will then get their 3 attacks into Metroplex. We will hopefully obviously survive with Metroplex, and then we will get to straighten. Now this is where a lot of the power from Metroplex will begin to come in, because now we have the ability to be able to start to dispatch our little characters. Now a lot of these scenarios, and I can't honestly go through all of them, is going to be based a lot on your hand. So I'm going to be showing you guys here in just a second. I'm going to be shuffling up one of the deck that I'm going to be running with Metroplex and showing you guys at the end of the video, so obviously you guys have a list to be able to go out and play with or know kind of better how to play against. I'm going to be showing you guys all that stuff, but what we're going to be able to do is be able to flip our character and deploy one of our little characters. Now, one of my usually early, if not always my first go-to, is going to be Slammer. The big benefit to Slammer coming out is he gets to do 1 damage to each character. In early game, you usually haven't KO'd a character with Metroplex, and if you're going up against a Combiner or however else, there's a lot of little characters, so maybe there was a chance you took out an early character. But Slammer is going to be able to come out and do the most amount of damage on this first turn, just because, again, maybe your opponent doesn't have a final KO'd character, or maybe that character that you swung into at first only had 1 health left. Slammer's going to be really nice to be able to clean that up and get as much damage as possible early game. The other advantage to having these little guys come out is they're obviously always going to be untapped, and that's going to be really nice because now we actually have the choice to be able to swing with our little character. Now, once we do attack with our little character, our opponent has to choose which character they would like to send back in. Most likely they're going to go with like Flame War here, or maybe they're trying to make sure they get a kill onto Slammer, so maybe Prime would come out. Again, a lot of these scenarios are going to come down to what's in players' hands and all that good stuff. Now, Slammer does have 3 armor, which is really awesome, and again, we do run blue pips in the deck, which is really, really nice, so maybe we're going to have to take, you know, little to no damage. Slammer does have very little health, so him being able to survive an attack is really, really nice. Now again, it'll come back to our turn, and we're going to have access to a lot of cards to really help us flip our Metroplex to continuously be flipping each turn and keep deploying out our little characters. Essentially, what you really want if it goes down in the correct scenario is that you are going to have all 3 of these characters out and probably tapped down, and then your opponent is going to be tapped, and Metroplex is going to be able to chew on whoever he would like. The other option, and it's kind of a more a better option, I would say, if you do have access to a bunch of bold, in order for you to protect your little guys from being KO'd, we actually can swing with our Metroplex. Now, we are, again, going to be running a lot of cards that allow us to flip Metroplex twice in a turn. So it's always really nice that if in even the situation we do get straight for our turn 1, that we get to flip him using one of those cards, we get to deploy a little character, and then we get to flip using our normal flip for the turn, getting Metroplex back to bot mode. Now we're going to automatically have bold 1, and let's say that we have access to an upgrade that's going to be able to get us to be able to get some more bold in. We can always swing, and then if we proc our ability, we get to completely tap our opponent down. And then now we do get to attack with our Slammer into any character that we would wish. So we talked about a lot of different cards that are really going to be able to help us flip our Metroplex 2 times in 1 turn, and these are going to be them. Now this list and most lists that you will come across will run these 9 cards that do allow you to flip your Metroplex, because it is very, very important that you are flipping your Metroplex twice in a turn. Now you may miss 1 turn, which is completely fine. You just get to flip over to the alt mode side, deploy a little character, throw that little character, and then you get the ability to try to set it up again next turn. But you really want to be playing one of these almost every single turn in the beginning of the game, if you can, to be deploying the little characters. Now sometimes you are going to hold on to one of these, maybe play a bold card, which we'll show off here in a second, to really try to get that ability from Metroplex to tap your opponent down is also a really good play. Again, a lot of these scenarios are going to be based on what is in your hand, but you always, always, always want to be trying to have these cards in your hand. Now first off, we have Rapid Conversion coming in with a white battle icon card, and just say you get to flip one of your characters to its other mode. The really cool part about Rapid Conversion is even if you happen to not have it at the right time and you have to flip your character into this mode and then happen to attack with a little character, then this is going to be a really good way to be able to flip you and get you back into this mode and ready to go. Next card is going to be Rollout, and it says flip each of your characters from bot mode to alt mode. Again, we're always going to be trying to attack with Metroplex in this mode because it is very, very important. Attacking in this mode is probably one of the worst things you can do. You want to always try to avoid attacking in this mode. And then finally, Escape Route coming in with the white battle icon and the green battle icon, which means after combat you can choose to pitch a card from your hand and then get it into your hand, which is really, really nice. It makes this a really, really effective way to always be trying to get it, and you're usually going to be seeing it early game, so it's really nice to always pick up. And it does say flip one of your characters from bot mode to alt mode. Again, really something that we want because we always want to be attacking in this mode. We get to play this card, which allows us to flip to our alt mode, deploy a little character, and then normal flip for the turn. Really, really good stuff. Now, we talked about different ways of getting bold, and this is going to be a specific card for Metroplex. It does come with the Metroplex box, and that is going to be Height Advantage. Height Advantage is a blue battle icon card. Again, we're really going to be focusing on the mixed list with these, with the orange, blue, and white battle icons, because we really have to be hitting that ability. And this says, one of your Titans gets bold 4 until end of turn. Again, I talked about how Metroplex was a Titan, so this is a really good card that we can currently only use on him. However, we do have another character coming out soon that is going to love that, but it does give him bold 4, which is really nice. It is really hard to miss your ability when you're going for something this big, especially if you do have out a little character as well, and you have bold 5 is really powerful. That means you're flipping 2 for your normal attack, you're flipping 5 off of your bold, most likely flipping a white, hopefully flipping a white, which then gives you 2 more after that. So we're flipping tons and tons of cards. The other action coming in giving us bold is going to be supercharge, orange battle icon, and does give us bold 3 till end of turn. Now we have multiple cards coming in for the bold slot when it comes to in the upgrades versus in the actions, and then one that you wouldn't even think about but is entirely possible. Now the first one's going to be Power Punch. Power Punch is really good. It's going to do the same thing as that supercharge, just in the upgrade form. It's going to be a weapon giving us bold 3. Now one thing that I did not say yet is that these are entirely okay to put on your little characters if you have access to multiple bold. Again, we always want to proc our Metroplex ability. However, if you do get an early chance in a game to be able to get a really good hit on an opponent's character with one of your littler characters by giving them bold, then I would always recommend that you can still do that. There are many, many ways of getting Metroplex's bold to be able to proc, so sacrificing a really early good attack is a bad thing to do. We want to make sure we are maximizing, obviously, each turn, making sure we're playing an action and an upgrade, getting in a really good attack. And again, if our opponent is tapped down because of Metroplex's ability, then these are really nice to put on there. Or even if you happen to get a really good chance to get in on a character and you know you have enough damage to be able to do that, then obviously I would go with upgrading these little guys. Next card coming in is going to be Backup Beam. Blue battle icon, again, we're running that mix list. Green battle icon, which means we get to pick it up after combat, so it makes it a really easy way for us to make sure that we can get it and make sure we can put that on our Metroplex, always really good. And then the last one coming in is going to be Handheld Blaster. Now first off, this is a double blue battle icon, so again, flipping just this one card automatically takes care of the blue side of his ability, but it also really helps us out on defense, which is nice. And then it is a weapon that gives bold 1. Now I don't recommend playing it when it comes to attacking, but if you have to because you need to proc your ability for whatever reason, let's say your opponent's going to crack back and KO you, or if you're just worried about one of your little characters getting KO'd, or maybe Grimlock has Trample. Trample's a really bad thing for this list, so you need to get that extra bold, or even if you need to KO one of those characters, then in those situations I would tell you to play it. However, in most situations I would just leave it as a double blue pip card. It's also really easy to be able to use one of these cards to be able to pitch to some of these green cards we see. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about is refreshing our hand. Now it is really easy to run out of cards in this list because we're always going to be playing so many cards to get bold, we're going to be flipping so many cards. Sometimes you do run out of cards in your hand, and again, we really want to make sure we're maximizing our attacks. We're really making sure that when Metroplex is attacking, that he is going to have bold, we're going to be able to hit his ability, or even if we just really need to get a flip card, maybe we have one for this turn, we need to set one up for next turn, whatever the case may be, I run System Reboot. Now another card that I do recommend that you can run is Work Overtime. Work Overtime you're going to find in the Constructicon starting box, and that does allow you to draw up to 4 cards in your hand. So if you only have 1, you draw 3. If you have 2, draw 2, etc. But I am more of a fan of System Reboot. Now again, this is a white battle icon, allowing us to flip 2 more. Also adding one of those white battle icons to Metroplex's ability, which is really nice. But it says each player scraps their hand and draws 4 cards. Now sometimes your opponent is going to be holding on to a card that is really detrimental to us. Or maybe our opponent just happened to draw a really good card. We saw them pick up a green card that we know is going to be really good, or maybe they're holding an Enigma that we really want to get rid of out of their hand. System Reboot is going to be a really nice card to help us refresh our hands and then also take away some of those tools from our opponent. Now it would also tell you to play this card carefully. The difference between this one and the Work Overtime is that this one can benefit your opponent. Let's say your opponent only has 1 card in their hand, then maybe you don't want to play System Reboot because then you're also allowing them 3 more cards. So it can be kind of interesting when it comes to this card. I find it better for me in most situations. So again, Work Overtime is entirely a possibility for you. So if you are running into issues where you're helping your opponent out with more of these cards, then I would then swap to the Work Overtimes and be drawing them yourselves. Now talking about our last two ways when it comes to attack is going to be Matrix of Leadership. Now this is in here because it is an orange and a blue battle icon, really helping us out proc those abilities. It's really nice on attack even with the little characters for getting in for some more, and then also allowing us to help block, which is really nice. Now we do not have any leaders, so the second half of the ability will mean nothing to us, but it does say put on Autobots only. Obviously we're running all Autobots, and then it also does give us +1 attack. So in those situations in which we have to play it, it's really nice because it doesn't take up a weapon slot, still gives us that +1, and then if we flip it, it's always good. It never really ever hurts us by flipping this. And then the next one is going to be Laser Cutlass. Now, Laser Cutlass is a new card coming in from Wave 3. Absolutely love it. And it is a blue battle icon. It is a weapon. It says put on characters that have 7 or fewer stars. All of our little characters are going to have, less than 7 stars, so any one of these is going to be a great target. It does give us +1 attack and then does give us Pierce 3. That means that Slammer is going to be getting in before we get to flip any other cards. For 4 Pierce 3, we're going to have 3 Pierce 3 with Scamper, which is really nice, and then also 3 Pierce 3 with 6 Gun. So again, going to be a really nice card to be able to put on any of these characters, because sometimes they do struggle getting in for damage just because we're attacking for 2 and 3. Maybe we're only flipping 1 orange. Most of the time our opponent's going to be blocking most of it, and so Laser Cutlass just means that each one of their attacks is always going to be beneficial. Now that we talked about attacking, we're going to talk about how we're going to better defend ourselves against our opponent. Now, we're going to have quite a bit of different cards here coming in with this. First 3 are going to be Debilitating Crystal. Now, this is a fantastic card. I've always loved this card. I stopped playing it for a really long time, but I did bring it back recently for some of my stuff. Maybe run as a 1 of or a 2 of, but with Metroplex, this card is really amazing. Now, it is a white battle icon. Obviously, we really want to be hitting those pips. It is a utility, so it doesn't take up our weapon slot, so it really doesn't hold back our bold, which is really nice. And then it says when the upgraded character attacks, we get to return one of the defender's upgrades. So sometimes they're going to have a really pesky weapon, or maybe they're going to have a really pesky armor, like a force field or something, and then we're going to really have to play around it. With this card, no matter what your opponent does have as far as an upgrade goes, we get to automatically bounce it back to their hand, which again can be really nice getting it out of our way. Not to mention, one thing that's really powerful about it that a lot of people don't know is that it almost stalls your opponent's board. Instead of them being able to progress the next turn by playing another upgrade on top of that, if they really want to, they have to replay the upgrade. Now, sometimes I would tell you to not play this if you're, let's say, attacking into a armed hovercraft and they have to return the armed hovercraft and then they get to replay it on you. Can definitely really suck. The one thing that this is it is a requirement. This is not a may. You absolutely have to return one of the defender's upgrades to their owner's hands. So again, make sure you are careful with this card, because if they do have those upgrades that do have come into play effects, then do not be using this card. Next one coming in is going to be Force Field. This thing is going to be really good. It really helps save our Metroplex on a lot of damage. It can also really help even save our characters, the little guys, for 1 swing, which is really nice. The actual only person that it does save is 6 Gun. So one thing to know is that he does have 5 health. Force Field does say it's a white battle icon first. It is an upgrade armor, and it says if the upgraded character would take 5 or more, instead they take 4, and you scrap that. Now, we're going to have Scamper coming in here with 4 health, so no matter what, he's KO'd. Same thing is going to go for Slammer. So the only character it is going to save is going to be 6 Gun, so make sure you do pay attention to that. And then obviously on our Metroplex, it's going to be really nice for helping prevent big damage. Next card is going to be coming in is going to be Bashing Shield. This one's really nice. It's an orange battle icon and a green battle icon, meaning we get to fish it. And then it does say when you put this on a character, you get to scrap an enemy armor. Now, another option for this slot could be Enforcement Batons. Almost the same thing as an orange and a green. It is a weapon. It says when you play it on a character, you get to scrap a weapon. So it really kind of depends on what you're seeing more of in your meta. If you are coming across more force fields, more pesky armors, because we really, again, want to be pushing as much damage as we can with Metroplex, getting his ability, tapping them down. And if they're getting really good armors and only taking 2 or 3 in attack, it's going to take us a really long time to get through a character. So we obviously want to use that Bashing Shield to get rid of some other armors. But again, if you're running across a lot of weapons in your meta, or a lot of Battle Masters currently that are just getting in for a lot and these weapons are really pesky and hurting you, then I would say to swap this card for an Enforcement Batons. And then finally, improvised shield. Again, it's going to be a lot like our handheld blaster, but obviously the opposite. It is going to be 2 orange battle icons, so it really helps us and already takes care of the 2 oranges when it comes to flipping Metroplex's ability, and it does give us 2 more attack when it comes to a little character, and then it does give us tough 1. Again, I don't recommend really ever playing the card unless you absolutely need to play it for that tough 1 to make sure you survive for an attack. If you have to play it to be able to survive, especially with Metroplex, then I highly recommend playing it, but I do not recommend playing it unless you absolutely have to. And then finally, for our last card, just one little bit of removal is going to be ramming speed. Now again, if you want to lean a little more blue with it and have the 1 extra blue pip in the deck, that is perfectly fine. You can swap this out for vaporize. They're both the exact same card minus the pips. So this one's going to be an orange. It does say scrap an enemy upgrade, and it is an action. Now I'm more of a fan of ramming speed in this situation just because I want to lean a little more towards the orange side of things, just to make sure that my little characters are being able to hopefully put out more damage as well. It can again be really unfortunate if we're attacking, we don't have a laser cutlass and we're only swinging for 2 or 3. Can really kind of suck. So sometimes this one might make a difference. Now when it comes to the big man himself and all these littler characters, again, we want to make sure when we start the beginning of the game, we're always going to be flipping Metroplex to this mode. We're going to be attacking. Again, we probably won't be proccing the ability off that first attack. The opponent gets in, and then now we're going to get to straighten, and this is where a lot of those scenarios are going to get to come into play, whether or not you flip, bring out another character, all those good things. Again, you always want to be getting that double flip for the turn, and it's always going to be in an action. We only have 9 actions that allow us to flip, so it won't be an upgrade. So we're going to be able to flip our character. We're going to be able to deploy a little character. Again, I always bring out Slammer and then flip back. Now this is where it becomes an interesting thing. I talked about it early in the video. Here you can possibly attack with your Metroplex and be able to tap your opponent down and get 2 swings, but sometimes I'm really not a big fan of that. It comes down to really what your opponent is running. Now let's say our opponent is a very aggressive, very hyper orange deck, and we know our Slammer is not going to make it. Now in this situation is where I would definitely be attacking with Metroplex. I'd be trying to get in a power punch on him because we've already flipped for the turn. So this getting out there is going to be really nice and being able to attack. Now we're going to have bold 4 off of those abilities, and we're going to have a really, really good chance to be able to proc our abilities. And the reason behind that is because I really want Slammer to kind of survive because it's only going to be 1 attack. Now what's going to happen is we're going to tap all of our opponent's characters down, and then we're going to go for the reset. This is obviously going to go away. And now our opponent only is going to get 1 attacker. They're most likely going to be choosing Metroplex. Maybe they want to kind of get rid of Slammer because they're really worried about getting swarmed, which is entirely a possibility. We really want to make sure that we try to keep these characters out. We use them as fodder when we know a really big swing is going to come in, and we want to protect our Metroplex. They essentially are going to act as free damage off of your Metroplex because they're being KO'd does kind of hurt the deck, but not really that bad. You guys did get to see a second ago, we have so much bold on the list that it really isn't that bad if these characters go down. So if you're really worried about your opponent swinging for 15, 17, 25 damage, whatever the case is, then I would definitely be feeding off the little characters first and protecting Metroplex because he's our main character. He is the one that we are going to win with. Now, the one instance in which case I would tell you to be very careful with these little characters is with Trample. Now, what Trample is, it's a magic reference, but we do get to see it in 2 different ways in this game. We have Grimlock currently, who does say when he attacks, any damage that he does over KOing a character gets to get moved to a different character. Now, you as the person being hit by the Grimlock gets to decide, but let's say we do happen to have our Slammer out and Grimlock gets in for that 15, we're no longer really minimizing that damage, we're still taking the same amount of damage. So it's going to KO our little character and then has to go somewhere else. In those scenarios, let's say we only have these 2 characters out, he's still going to be able to KO Slammer and do a bunch of damage to our Metroplex. So in that situation, you are going to be blocking 2 more here, but I might just be throwing out my Metroplex so they absolutely have to go into Metroplex. He is going to absorb a massive amount of damage, but you're also still going to be able to keep your little character around for later. Now, if you happen to be in the same situation, you have 2 characters out, then I don't really worry as much about throwing out one of the little characters because if there is that much carryover damage, then you can just put it onto your 6-gun, let's say in this situation, and yes, you will lose both of your characters, but you will still have your Metroplex, and you really got to prevent all of that damage. Now the next thing we're going to be talking about is the sideboard and what I currently have. Now the first 3 coming in are going to be Heat of Battle. This card is a new addition from Wave 3, really awesome card, and it's going to be a white battle icon. It says all characters get bold 3 and tough 3 till end of turn. Now this card can sometimes have really, really awesome abilities. One thing that's really nice is let's say you happen to have 2 characters out and you're about to go into an attack. Everyone is untapped. you play Heat of Battle, and now Metroplex is going to be able to get access to Bolt 3 and Bolt 4 off of that. Now, I also say that I only bring this in usually when our opponent is leaning a little more orange, because if they're leaning heavy blue, the tough 3 really hurts because every character gets it, including your opponent. So when we are attacking into them, they're tough, maybe they're going to block enough and it's really not going to matter, so I do not bring it in. I also don't mainboard it just because I never really know if I'm going to be going against heavy orange or heavy blue, so to be safe, I always kind of just keep it in the sideboard. Now again, if we were going up against a heavy orange list, we play this, we get to go in with Metroplex first, which is really nice. We're not going to have access to Bolt 3 and then Bolt 1 off of this character for the instance. We're also going to do 1 damage directly to the character before we even get into anything. And then let's say we will most likely proc. We then get to tap everybody down, get to do 1 damage to each of all of them. And then our 6-gun and our slammer still have access to Bolt 3, which is really, really nice. Again, our opponent can half tough 3, especially if they're a heavy orange or all orange. It really won't matter. It lets them flip their entire deck, which is really cool. It helps to get the double orange pips out of the way, and then we get to get in big damage with these guys as well. So this is a really, really good card. Next one coming in, and again, I have this in my sideboard as just a one of. If I'm saying that I need more removal, I bring it in, and then I don't bring in another ramming speed because I'm already running one in the main board. So this just really helps keep those pips really divided because it is a blue battle icon. Next one coming in is going to be Armed Hovercraft. Now, Armed Hovercraft is a blue battle icon. It is a weapon, and it is a put on a ranged character, which again, we kind of looked at most of our stuff. Going to be ranged, going to be ranged, going to be ranged, and going to be ranged in this mode, but melee in this mode. So we really have a lot of different targets, even if we do happen to flip to this mode, and we get to play that. This is going to do essentially exactly what Slammer does, and it does 1 damage to each enemy character. Really nice stuff, plus it does give us +1 attack. Next 2 coming in are going to be Grenade Launcher. Now again, I bring these in for those heavy orange matchups or someone that leans a little more into orange. Even if they're kind of into blue, it's not a bad card to bring in because it does give us just +4 attack. But it's really nice to be able to put onto these little characters to help them get in big damage, especially on orange lists, because they're obviously not flipping any blue. It's really easy to do the math on how much you have to attack with. And then again, obviously really nice on Metroplex if you don't happen to be getting a bunch of bold for the turn, or you're going to happen to play a Grenade Launcher and a Supercharge on a Metroplex, you're going to be doing massive amounts of damage, always trying to KO a character. Make sure you're always attacking the proper targets, always going into the correct characters, so we can really try to maximize all this damage. And then my last 2 in this list are going to be Infiltrates. Now, Infiltrate, really good card. It is a blue battle icon, a secret action. It says reveal when one of your opponents plays an orange action, and then you essentially get to negate that card. It is scrapped, and it is the card is not activated. Now, the one thing that's really nice about this is that it hits quite a bit of cards that can be really, really dangerous for us. One of those really good cards is Piece Through Tyranny. Our opponent can happen to play a Piece Through Tyranny, take an extra turn, especially early game when our opponent is getting an all-out attack into one of our characters. It can be really, really deadly if they happen to have a Lionizer out, because on their turn 1, they get to play a card, they play Piece Through Tyranny, get rid of the Lionizer, they get an extra turn, they get to put that onto a character, swing for an insane amount of damage, and then they get to untap and get to go first, get to repeat the process, and maybe even kill your Metroplex right off the bat, which can be really, really scary. Another one that can kind of hurt can be Reckless Charge, some other things like that. Reckless Charge gives +4 attack. We really want to make sure that we are really protecting our characters as best we can, not letting our opponent get advantage in a lot of those things. The other card that you can definitely do for this is the last 2 for a sideboard is Marksmanship. Not a bad card at all. I really do like it. Marksmanship says that as long as you have a ranged character, you get to do 2 damage to a character in bot mode. Really, really good card as well. Again, we have a bunch of ranged characters, so it's a really nice card to be able to bring in, especially if you're not seeing a bunch of orange in your area, or whatever the case is. Maybe those orange battle icon cards or action cards aren't really that much of a thing for you. Then I would definitely bring in those marksmanships, because that 2 damage can be really, really awesome. Just make sure you do use it correctly, because it does have to go onto a character or deal damage to a character that is in bot mode. Now, the next thing that we're going to do before we get into the rest of it is talk about pip control. Now, pip control is probably one of the most important things that you can do when it comes to Metroplex, is by maintaining what pips are going to be in your deck, in your hand, and in your scrap pile at all times. And it's because we really want to make sure we're obviously hitting that ability. We've been talking about it the whole video. So the way that we're going to be doing that is by making sure that we actually can proc the ability when we do go to get an attack on Metroplex. Now, early game, when you have the entire deck to go through, it's obviously a way different scenario, but you can always do this counting that I always do, and what I count is the white pips. It's a lot easier to hit the oranges and blues, however the white ones are going to be the more difficult ones for us to hit, so I always want to make sure that we do have those within our list. Now I will say that I know that I have 15 whites in this deck, and I currently have 1 in hand, which means that I'm going to have 14 left in the deck. Now we just did all that shuffling. Let's say this is going to be our scrap pile, and that this is going to be our deck. Now without looking at it, what I will do is now go through all of these and try to count how many oranges, double blues, and whites that we're going to have in here. Again, we have 15 on the list, minusing 1. We're going to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 10 white pips currently, in 1 in our hand and 9 in the scrap, which means we are going to have 5 left in the deck. Now you can kind of see how many are going to be left in here. We have a pretty good chance of being able to see one when we do go to attack. And then now I'll look for the double oranges. You can do these at the same time. It does take a little bit of practice to know what you're looking for. Another way to do that is always put the card to the top of the deck of your scrap pile. You're perfectly able to do that in this game. And then seeing how we only have 2 in here. Oh, we have all 3 of the double oranges in here, but we do not have any of the double blues. So we're most likely okay when it comes to the blues in the list and the whites in the list. So the way that I'm going to be looking at this is based on what is here left. I'm going to really have to make sure I hit some of those oranges, and we know that we have a lot of double blues and whites in there. So I'm going to go with the height advantage as my card. The other one you could go with is the supercharge. However, the height advantage is going to give us that 1 extra right now, and I do think that we are going to need that 1 extra. So we would go ahead, play the height advantage, and then we would start our flip. Now we would have 2 for our normal attack. We would have bold 1 off of slammer. Now we would get 2 for the white pip. Now as you guys can see there, we already have 2 oranges, 2 blues, and a white. All we need is 1 more white left, and we do have the bold 4. So there's going to be all those double blues that we talked about, and then finally we are going to get that last white at the end, which is going to be really nice. Obviously this is going to be able to allow us to proc our ability, tap our opponent down, get 1 damage across the board. We're also going to be getting in for 6 base off of the Metroplex, 9 damage, apologies, 9 damage off of our flips. Now you guys can see that was pretty important to make sure that we knew that we had the right cards in there. Had we gone with the supercharge in that instance, we'd have actually missed the last white pip. Would have been very unfortunate. Getting only bold for 9 attack, not proccing the ability, would have really hurt. Alrighty, so again, pip control is a really big, important thing. You really want to make sure that you're in those right scenarios. You're always playing the right cards. Let's say we're lower in the deck and we really needed to get a shuffle and you happen to have a power punch and a supercharge. Maybe that would be the route to go. You always want to make sure you are proccing, and the best way for you to do that is always know what is left in your deck, which you can obviously figure out by minusing what is in your scrap pile and what is in your hand. So that is going to be the best way to be able for us to be able to play Metroplex, making sure we're taking advantage of all those things I talked about, really making sure we maximize all of our turns. Let's talk about how to best play against Metroplex. Now that we talked about all the best ways to play Metroplex, what we're going to talk about now is talking about all the best ways to beat Metroplex. Now, one card that is so fantastic in a lot of different lists is going to be Gyro Blaster. Now, we did obviously see previously that Metroplex really focuses on bold. He really needs to be maximizing that bold, whether he's getting it from the other characters or getting it from cards in his hand, and we want to shut that down. If he's not proccing his ability, we have a really good chance of winning the game because our opponent just isn't putting out enough damage between the little characters, and not getting to tap us down is going to be really nice. Now, Gyro Blaster does not have any battle icons. It is a utility, which is fantastic, gives us +1 attack, but it says when the upgraded character battles, each player can't flip more than 2 battle cards in a turn. This card means that Metroplex will never proc. He's only flipping 2 cards. There is no way you're getting those 6 battle icons, obviously, off of it. And you always want to put this on the character that you want to best support to be going up against Metroplex. In the previous list we talked about, or showed, I'd be putting it on something like Optimus. Now, we would be losing our abilities on this side, but we'd still be able to focus, which is nice. But this still would allow us to shut down so much on our opponent from the Metroplex. Again, they're not flipping those cards, so they are not getting those abilities. Next card is going to be coming in is going to be Espionage. Now, Espionage is a really good card for most situations, but it is going to be more of a control card. A lot of the stuff that you're going to see here is us really trying to control our opponent, making sure that they are not doing the things that they want to be doing. Espionage is a white and a green battle icon. It's really good for us to be able to fish, and it says that we get to choose a battle icon color, and then we get to look at our opponent's hand and scrap a chosen card of the color. Now you guys did see when it does come to Metroplex, when it comes to bold cards, we have Power Punch, we have Supercharge, we have Height Advantage, we have Backup Beam. That is currently 4 different cards in that list that do give access to bold. Also after the sideboard, we did talk about Heat of Battle, so that is a white battle icon. All of those cards you can easily choose a color of and most likely get one from your opponent's hand. Now it is a little iffy because you do have to try to pick correctly. The other thing that you can really try to do with Espionage, which is nice, is take away your opponent's flip cards. We saw that they had the escape route, rollouts, and rapid conversions. So if you're playing in the early game, you know that you saw them pick up an escape route. They probably needed that escape route. You drop the Espionage, you take the escape route, and they're not able to do a double flip really early, which is really powerful too because you put them on a really bad clock because they have to flip with their Metroplex, which would be in this mode. They'd flip to this mode, deploy a little character, and then they're going to have to attack with the little character because they cannot flip to play Metroplex and be able to get his attack that turn, which is going to be really nice because you set your opponent back quite a bit. Next card coming in is going to be Dampening Field. Now, Dampening Field is going to really fit the same void as kind of the Gyro Blaster is going to do. However, on the action side, it is a white battle icon, so you can pretty much put it in whatever deck and it really doesn't get to hurt you. And then it does say reveal when one of your opponent's characters, when one of your characters defends, your opponent cannot flip more than 4 cards. This really, really limits the Metroplex to be able to get his ability because, again, we're only flipping 4 cards. It's like a Metroplex flipping from its first attack. And because we don't run that many double pips, it's going to be really difficult, if not impossible, for your opponent to be able to proc the ability because they would have to flip white battle icon, double blue, double orange, white, which is probably going to be a ridiculously hard thing to do. Now that we talked about a lot of the cards that we could use to really help put Metroplex behind, a lot of it really comes from this right here, and that is the combat. One thing that a lot of people really get hung up on is focusing on the wrong target. This is your target 99.9% of the time. Metroplex is the character that you always want to be attacking with. Now, if you are playing, you always want to make sure that you choose to go second, which forces the Metroplex to go first. Metroplex really hates going first because he doesn't get to play any cards. And the reason is because they'll always go for this flip, they'll go for the attack, they'll, let's say do 8 damage, we're going to be blocking a bunch between our Flame War, or maybe they're going to be going into Optimus, whatever the case may be in this scenario. Like I said, a lot of these scenarios will change really based on your characters. Maybe they'll be able to go first and really KO one of your characters that have a low health, but it's a really easy target. Maybe they're going to go into your RC, whatever the case may be. But Metroplex is going to be able to get in, and then now we get to play a card, and we get to also flip a character. So in this scenario, it'd be really tough. It would depend on what's in the scrapyard after he does attack. If there's a weapon, I would definitely say to flip Wheeljack. If there isn't a weapon, then maybe flip Flame War, whatever the case is, and we get to just crack in for all 3 characters and get to go into Metroplex. Now, the reset is where things will start to get a little weird. Again, the Metroplex player, I would always put them on having the flip card. So they're going to be able to flip their card, they're going to bring out their character, and then it depends on what they do. Now, if they choose to go with a little character, then you kind of have to play the little character fight. So you're going to have to throw in your little character, and then they'll be able to do their double flip, let's say, and they'll be able to bring out another little character, and then you got to throw a character, yada yada. But no matter how it pans out, if they are going this route, they are not tapping you down with Metroplex's ability, which is really nice. What'll happen is you will end up being tapped. Even if Metroplex happens to bring out the last and third character, these characters would be tapped, maybe even killed, especially after like a Wheeljack hit or something like that. So in this scenario, let's say we get 6-gun out of here. We got our Scamper out as our last character. Even if they're going in with both characters and they do happen to proc Metroplex's ability, yes, it's 1 damage to everybody. However, we are already tapped, so we do not get to lose an attack. After all of this combat goes down and we go back to the refresh, we go to the straighten. Now, a lot of people here will then begin to let's go, oh, okay, well, Flame War's still alive, we'll go Flame War into Slammer. Now, this is where I think that this can be a really big problem because you are not focusing Metroplex. Now you're allowing your opponent to, again, kind of play the tap game. They're always going to be able to swing with more characters than you and have Metroplex to allow to be able to feed on anybody he wishes, which is really, really bad because he will KO characters he's hitting for a lot of damage, especially with access to so much bold. Even if you are trying to go the attrition route, you get to, like, let's say, KO another character. You even get to KO 2 characters, which would be probably the dream. You always want to be focusing Metroplex. So when it comes to these scenarios, let's say you get to untap and you're in this scenario where you get to go into either of these characters. If you have the damage, you have the big buff, then I would probably be like, let's say, throw Wheeljack or even Prime if you need to into Metroplex, because after the reset, no matter how it pans out, you will always be the first attacker into a completely untapped board, so you can always go back into Metroplex. He cannot get protected by these little characters. He will always be able to be attacked. Now, once you get these little characters off the table, you're probably going to be looking at something like this, and then again, you have your one-on-one, and there's no way Metroplex is going to be taking the last prime in this scenario. Now, I know that there is a lot more when it comes to playing Metroplex than there is going against Metroplex, but again, I think it is very important that you know how to play against Metroplex so you know what cards to kind of hit and you know what really is going on. One thing to note as well when it comes to going up against Metroplex, again, is pip control. You can always look through your opponent's scrap pile, ask them nicely if you can look through it. You can look through there and you can count their white pips, you can count their orange pips, count their blue pips, and then you can go and go, okay, I know they have 5 white pips left, maybe I should try to get rid of this card out of their hand, or maybe I should try to go this route, really try to keep them off of being able to get Metroplex's ability. The other thing that you can do is make sure that when Metroplex is swinging, that you are giving him a target that you don't really care about, one of your lesser characters. So even if a Metroplex is playing it aggressive, which is one thing that's entirely possible if they feel they have enough bold, they feel they have the ability to, make sure you are feeding them a bad character or one of your least characters that you want to stick around. So even if they are getting in those big swings with Metroplex, they're KOing your smaller characters, so you have your bigger characters, because even if Metroplex does proc, taps everybody down, you will have to straighten and you will have the attack to go back into Metroplex. So you want to make sure that you're not giving your really big character early, so Metroplex is being able to KO that character, so when you do straighten, you get to attack with something like Flame War in the end, versus you want to obviously be swinging with your Optimus Prime, Battlefield Legend, General Prime, Wheeljacks, Lionizers, whatever the case may be. So there you guys have it. There is our first episode when it comes to learning how to play and battling against, with Metroplex being our first episode. Really hope that you guys did enjoy this. Obviously, again, a like would be greatly appreciated. Lets me know that you guys did enjoy this series. I will have the deck down in the description box below. You guys did get to see it in the learn how to play side of things, and it is a really fantastic list. It is really strong. A lot of people feel that they really have to run a lot of double pips or all of the double pips when it comes to Metroplex, and I don't think that's correct. Eric is one of our local players who's probably one of the best, if not the best, Metroplex player that I have seen. He pilots him extremely well. I did work with him on this to be able to get a really lot of good information from him, and his best quote from it was, if you build the deck correctly, you don't really have to rely on what pips are going to be there, because he's pretty sure that when he does attack with the correct sequence of bold and attacks, that he will always be proccing Metroplex, which is really, really nice, and it just goes to show that you don't have to be running those double pip cards just to proc, as long as you are playing all of the sequencing correctly. Now, obviously, you will have to have time playing with the character for you to really start to get into how everything feels. It's going to be the same really with every deck, to be honest with you. You have to have deck practice, whether it's against or whether it's with the character. I really hope that you guys did enjoy this episode. The next episode is going to be Insecticons. I know a lot of people have had issues with those, both trying to pilot them and both trying to play against them, so they will be our next one. I'm going to be trying to be putting these out at least one a week, so make sure you guys are looking forward to that. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.